Hi, Mick here for Guitarist with a look at the new Marshall Astoria Custom. Now, as you can see, it's a very different look for Marshall. There are 3 amps in the Astoria range. This is the Custom, which is a single channel affair. All 3 of the amps are based around a KT66 output section. Marshall's used KT66s on and off over the years in various amps, notably in some of the very first amps the company ever made. Interestingly, Marshall's also chosen to go with a GZ34 valve rectifier in the Astoria Custom. The other interesting thing about the Astoria range is it's Marshall's kind of first serious foray into what you might think of as the boutique amp market. As such, they're made in England. Inside you'll find a combination of PCB and turret board construction. And obviously it has very unusual look for Marshall, a new aesthetic with this red vinyl, red and white. The red denotes the custom model. In the cabinet you'll find a custom tweaked version of the H-Magnet Creamback, which is the heavy magnet 75 watt speaker. It's a very popular speaker at the moment and Marshall has chosen it for its 1x12 cabinet here. So without further ado, let's run through the features and get some sounds up. I'll just explain what's going on the floor here. We've got TC Electronic flashback delay and Hall of Fame reverb that's running in the amp's loop. Helpfully, the Astoria Custom has a switchable effects loop, so they're in the loop. The EP booster, exotic EP booster, is running straight into the front end of the amp, and I've got that on there purely to compare with the Astoria's own foot switchable boost. So that's what's happening. Those are the only pedals involved. Right, so as you can see, we've got the front panel set up with everything off, if you like, nothing pulled or pushed. So this is what we get with that. So pretty glassy, cleanish sound. Now I can make that even glassier by pulling out the bright control here. Here we go. And similarly on the gain pot there's a pull body function which puts in a lot of lower end as you'll hear. So already we're breaking up a bit. I think these features are really useful, particularly at lower volumes where the amp isn't really cooking and you can just add a bit more bottom and top in as necessary. Right, so I'm just going to push that back in for a sec. Using those same settings, here's what Marshall's own built-in boost does. So. It's a pretty thick sounding boost. I'm just going to compare that with the EP booster. So we'll hear the Marshall boost, I'll turn it off, and then I'll turn the EP booster on so you can hear the difference. The EP booster is set pretty much straight up. So Marshall boost. A little bit different, but not entirely dissimilar, and seeing as we're there, let's put both of them on. So even without any distortion pedals, what we've got there is the Marshall's own boost engaged and the EP booster. So let's push the gain on the amp a little bit more and see what happens. So here we go. So into really nice overdriving. I'll plug some humbuckers in a minute, but it's already overdriving really nicely. And then I'll switch the boost in. really nice, really kind of rock territory. I'll just explain what the edge control does. Now this is, so the power section's got no negative feedback, and the way you would control presence in the power amp is with a negative feedback circuit, and that's pretty much what this edge control does. So while you're here, rolled right off. So it's not a treble control as such, it acts like a presence control like you would expect, you know, sparkly high end, and that can be really useful when you're playing at volume, particularly if you just need just a bit of hair on the top there just to cut through. Also, if you're using a really dark guitar with pretty dark humbuckers, it can be great just to add some presence back in. Right, what else have we got? We've got, I've shown you the pull bright, I've shown you the pull body. There's also a power reduction, so let's set the amp to about here. And it drops the amp from a stated 30 watts down to a stated 5 watts. Obviously you don't get all that drop in volume, it'll just start overdriving a little bit more as you drop the volume. Interesting. It takes just a little while for the power to be taken away and then put back in again. But that's quite a significant drop there, which means if you were to pull it out, get everything really cranked. Let's put the boost on. It should go into like... all the characteristics of a really cooking power section there. So you get compression, sag, all of that fun stuff. Just to reiterate, there was no additional pedals there. That was all the amp with its own boost. Okay, just before we move on to some humbuckers, just going to explain about the loop. The Astoria Custom has an effects loop which you can switch in, on and off on the foot switch. It's got a master level on the effects loop, but it's not a mix control. So here we go. Here are no effects in the loop. And I'll switch the effects in. So if you had no pedals switched in, you could use the loop master when the loop's switched on as a separate master volume for the whole amp. So let's say we've got it really cranked up. And we'll put the boost on as well. The FX loop is switched in, so if we now turn down the loop master, it's not really what it's designed for, but it can be quite useful nonetheless. But back to switched in with the effects. Really nice. I mean, there's a lot of in-betweeny kind of not quite clean, not quite fully overdriven sounds in there, thanks to the way you can mix all those controls. Right, humbuckers. So yeah, okay, this is a PRS DGT with the standard pickups, and we'll go back to where we began. Here we are. So even with relatively low gain setting there, it's still overdriving. Let's plug into the low input just quickly, just to see how much gain that knocks off. Yeah, quite a bit of gain. So you're getting a gain reduction there if you want to use the low input for cleaner sounds. A lot of people really like to do that. Okay, moving on. Forgive the neck pickup wigging out there with the tone rolled off, but that just seems to be a thing that most Marshall amps do particularly well. That was, again, no distortion pedals involved there, just the Astoria's own boost and cranking the natural overdrive of the amp. So there we go. Single channel, relatively simple set of controls, but with really useful pulls and pushes and the switchable boost there, plus the effects loop, plus the low power mode. There's a lot of sound in there for just one channel. It'll definitely appeal to players who like amp overdrive, like the thing overdriving fairly early on, so you can push it with different guitars. There's not a huge amount of clean headroom there. And in that sense, it's a great continuation of Marshall's, rock heritage. Really nice to see something new from the brand. There have been mixed opinions to the styling. I actually really like it, thinks it looks pretty cool. So there we go, Marshall Astoria Custom. See you next time.